I'm Louise and this is Katie, and we're both in Mind's campaigns team. As I'm sure you're all aware by now, there is a general election on the 8th of June, so we wanted to just spend a few minutes giving you some information about what we're going to do and how you can get involved. So Katie, maybe you can give us a bit of background.
So I guess just to go back a bit, so the election was announced 2 weeks ago, only 2 weeks ago today. So like everyone else, we didn't see it coming. We had no idea about it. So kind of immediately, we've done election campaigns before. It was only 2 years ago we did the last one. So yeah, it's a really exciting time for Mind to kind of make sure that mental health is part of the campaign, that all political parties are talking about it, and that that mental health is a key issue at the election. I guess importantly, the timing of it. Actually, we were ready kind of gearing up for a debate about personal independence payments, and kind of really disappointingly, that was due the day after the election was announced. So that's been kind of postponed, cancelled. Something we'll be wanting to pick up after the election. But yeah, for now we're kind of in full election campaign mode.
Yeah, and I think the thing to stress is that it's an opportunity really for us to make sure together that whoever wins the next election really puts their money where their mouth is this time and actually does deliver on mental health. And I'm sure that many of you will be thinking, well, this election is a done deal. Lots of the papers are reporting that it's a done deal, but we know from previous polls that nobody knows what might happen, what the turnout might be. So we think it's really important that we all use our voice and we speak to all parties and we get out there and vote.
Yeah, and I guess just to pick up on that, it's whilst as individuals, it's really important that we all vote and kind of get engaged in the process. As a charity, Mind is completely politically neutral, so we are. So we're we don't support any particular candidates or parties. We would encourage anybody and everybody to be talking about mental health, and in doing so, we will be talking to all parties about mental health and trying to encourage everybody across the kind of political spectrum to speak out.
Yeah, and as you said, this is something that we did only 2 years ago in 2015. We ran quite a big election campaign back in 2015, and our focus then was really not as ambitious as it is this time. Really, we just wanted to make sure that there was something on mental health in all the manifestos, and we, with your help, did achieve that. We had good big chunks in all the manifestos on mental health, so that's encouraged us to be even more ambitious this time, to make sure that all the parties go beyond where they were in 2015 and really show us what they can do and why we must vote for them.
Yeah, and I guess whilst there's been really good chat, in the media, from the government, there's been really kind of high profile on mental health for the last few years. Actually, we know that despite lots of good chat up here, actually on the ground, you're telling us that services, you're not necessarily seeing an improvement to health services. You've still got kind of very long waiting lists for things like talking therapies. Actually, our physical and our mental health aren't being treated the same as we would expect them to, and things like having a decent place to live, and being able to work, being able to have kind of social connections and be part of society is as important as ever, and if not kind of more important, because lots of us are talking about mental health still. So there's still a lot to work on, and we've picked out 6 areas that we think are particularly important to focus on. So yeah, I guess we'll talk through those.
Should we go through them? So the first area that we think is really important for all parties to focus on, and for you to focus on as well actually, is that the 5-year forward view for mental health is delivered. So the 5-year forward view is the plan that was developed in 2015 for mental health in England, and there was £1 billion attached to that to really get things moving and improving in mental health. And the current government signed up to it, as did all of the bodies that run the health service. And it covers things like reducing waiting times for talking therapies, making sure that everybody can have access to crisis care 24/7 wherever they might live in the country, making sure that mental health is spoken about in schools and workplaces, all of the really critical things. So what we need to do is make sure that that plan is not lost in this election, and that all parties commit to delivering it, and in fact going beyond and committing even more money, even more time to mental health.
Yeah, and I guess kind of tied into that, the second kind of key issue that we're really focusing on is around stigma and discrimination, and there is still a lot of stigma around mental health. We think it's getting better. We think attitudes are kind of improving towards mental health, and kind of understanding is slowly improving. But you know, lots of you tell us that, you know, being discriminated against at work, for example, you know, can be just as bad as the mental health problem that you're experiencing. And so we want the next government to really take a leadership. Actually, the more we speak out about mental health, the more the royals, the more the government, you know, speak out about mental health, you know, we break down stigma, and supporting and kind of carrying on to support Time to Change, which is the biggest anti-stigma and discrimination kind of national campaign and awareness campaign around mental health. We need to see that, you know, continued support for that.
And our third ask is actually linked to that. Our third ask is around mental health in the workplace. So we know from you that it's a really important issue. We spend so much of our lives at work. And if you work in a place where you can't talk about your mental health, where you can't ask for help or support if you need it, it can make things so much worse. So we want to see a country where everybody works, wherever they may work, in a place that they can ask for support, they can take time off without having to lie or make up a reason for it. And we think that the government has got a really big role to play in this, in encouraging employers to do a better job here. And it's not just about people that are in work, it's also about people that might be taking their first steps to returning to work. So we know that there's kind of no one-size-fits-all package to help people get ready for work. We need really tailored local support for people, and again, the government's got a big role to play in this.
Yeah, and just kind of the fourth issue, just to follow on from that one, is around actually the support that we get when we're too unwell to work. And you know, lots of us will or may at some time be too unwell to work because of our mental health. So things like making sure that actually people aren't sanctioned, you know, have your benefits cut or reduced because you're unable to attend appointments, often due to your mental health, is a really important one. It's something that, you know, you tell us is the kind of most pressing issue for a lot of you. It's one of the things we get most calls about. Absolutely. Is support kind of when and if you're out of work. So sanctions and no sanctions, basically. We want the government to commit to never sanctioning people with mental health problems, and also making sure that when you have your assessment process, you know, to determine what kind of support is best or most suitable for you, that person doing the assessment has a strong knowledge of what living with a mental health problem is like. Similarly to physical health, and you know, that support then is kind of, you know, based on what your needs are. And then just to go back to personal independence payments again, the PIP campaign, which again a lot of you have campaigned for this on over the last few months, we want to make sure that the changes that were brought in back in February are reversed. So that's around everybody, whether that's a physical or a mental health problem, and whatever your symptom is, we think you should be able to get exactly the same support as everybody else.
It's about being eligible for PIP, whether you've got a mental health problem or a physical health problem. If you need extra support to make your journey from A to B, you should be, and in fact we say you are entitled to that support. So we've got to overturn these changes. They're just outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our fifth manifesto ask is actually about all of the non-health challenges. So we feel that a lot of the political parties are starting to understand why it's so important to improve mental health services, as in NHS services. But actually our lives are about more than just our health services. We have a lot of challenges that we might need support with. It might be that we need advice on debt or financial issues. We might need legal advice. We might rely on social care, or perhaps for a lot of you it's just about having a kind of sense of community and belonging and somewhere to go, something to do. And unfortunately, lots of those services have been eroded over the last few years. It's really important that that stops, that those services are funded and our lives are made as easy as they can be. So we'll be calling on all of the parties to do a bit more in that area, as well as health services.
And then I guess our final big issue is that we're calling on whoever forms the next government to kind of get rid and repeal old and outdated laws and legislation that have a really big impact on those of us with mental health problems. So things like, we want to see a full review of the Mental Health Act. It's over 30 years old, this piece of law, and we think it needs to be based on actually, you know, supporting people to make their own choices about kind of care and support and treatment, and respecting people's choices as well. So we want a full review of that. Another issue, we want, you know, really taking another look at is around police cells. So you may know that some people are still taken to police cells when they're experiencing a mental health crisis, often because there's not enough health-based places for them to go, and actually we would never tolerate that for a physical health problem, and we don't think it should ever be tolerated for a mental health crisis either. And
it's
then,
outrageous, really, isn't it? In this day and age, that people are taken to police cells when they're unwell, it's not good enough.
yeah, exactly. And I guess the final one with that is the Human Rights Act. So we want to, make sure that our rights are protected. That's particularly important for mental health because lots of people do long-term stays in hospitals or under the Mental Health Act, and so particularly upholding people's rights through that, but also through kind of discrimination at work. Again, lots of you told us that mental health is a big player within, if you're discriminated at work, so making sure that your rights there are upheld is really, really important for us too.
So, lots to do, lots of issues to work on, and as ever, we really need your help to do it. We're relying on you. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be updating Facebook and Twitter often. We'll also be sending regular campaigner emails. If you haven't signed up to receive those emails, please do, because we need your help to get the message through. So you'll be hearing from us on what you can do. There's also lots of information on our website. Actually, we've just updated all of the pages there with things like questions you could use if a candidate comes knocking on your door, or a bit more information about how you register to vote, and just some kind of basic FAQs on what's going to happen and when. So we really hope that you can join us and get involved in this campaign. We've got 6 weeks to go, and we're excited. We hope you are too.
Yeah, and then I guess it's just sign up to a campaigner if you're not already, and that's where we'll be updating people most about the election campaign.
Thanks.
Bye.